Hello, podcasters, and welcome to another episode of the Deep Time Podcast. On today's episode, I am joined by Armin
Hello.
and Kalamaka.
Hello.
And today's episode, we're returning to a fan favorite dinosaur, everyone's favorite perfect content provider over the past few years, Spinosaurus. Yay! Big woo!
Woo! Let's go!
So new Spinosaurus paper just dropped a short while ago, and the debate it continues with: is Spinosaurus a shoreline generalist or aquatic pursuit specialist? Which are basically the two extremes of what has been proposed in recent years for Spinosaurus. So the paper is published by David Hone and Thomas Holtz. Yay, big names, nice.
Yep.
And it's interesting. It's more of a, I'd say, literature review paper in that it tackles primarily what's been published in prior papers without first-hand examination of the specimens, as far as I can tell, per se. Although there is, I mean, the plots. Are the plots original? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, there were principal component analysis. So there were some there were features analyzed. So there was data analyzed, but it was less heavy on first-hand examination of specimens, and there's a lot of review to previous literature. But it is still quite an interesting study. And yeah, well, we could either just go through it, try and break it all down, or just have a sort of discussion of the points and what we think of them. What do you guys prefer?
I mean, we can go through it.
We can go for pretty
I
much
think
both.
it's the main point really is it's one of two, as you said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of two. Do they present any evidence for it being in favor of it being a pursuit predator in this paper? They're pretty damn critical throughout, I feel.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
they did, it wasn't a very good point.
Yeah. So almost all of the evidence presented, I've not seen anything strong, presented against it. Almost all of the evidence they present argues that this was not a pursuit predator. Firstly, it was not good at pursuit. This is a point I personally quite agree with, but we'll get into that discussion in a bit. And then they also argue that it's actually not that really well adapted for being aquatic, and all of the adaptations that point towards it being aquatic actually could also apply to a terrestrial animal, or a semi-aquatic, more like a wader, and also bring up points that actually strongly support it being a wader. So does anyone have any burning points they want to raise or discuss?
I mean, nothing huge. Do you just want to talk about the weighting model real quick?
Yes, go for it.
Models. Yeah. So the weighting model, which is the pretty much shoreline generalist, would be pretty much exploited a riparian feeder model, similarly to herons and other shoreline feeders, where the paper does state that they would be generalists in some form, and that in addition to foraging for fish and other aquatic prey from the shorelines, they could also take prey on land and even use their forelimbs to dig for buried items. Specifically, an example is lungfish, which I think is an interesting thing to talk about.
Yeah.
The digging capability of Spinosaurus, that's I've never actually heard anyone talk about that.
Yeah, that was interesting to see.
I don't know how good of a digger would be, though. I
mean, we really don't have the forelimbs for it to say.
Yeah, but is it just an interesting thing to think about, because
Definitely.
we know we had pretty big claws
Yeah.
and pretty bulky arms, what we have. So interesting thing to think about. So it's also stated that they definitely had affinities for aquatic environments, and the jaws look great to catch fish with. It's the trend with a lot
And
of
it's kind of
fish.
undeniable at this point.
Yeah. It's definitely partially piscivorous. That's just a straight fact. But it could have a much more diverse diet. I mean, it's known that it likely ate other dinosaurs and pterosaurs.
As based on Irritator, for example, and Baryonyx.
Yeah.
Yep. And while they do have a crocodile skull, they don't have dorsally elevated nostrils or orbits, as you see in many pursuit and mostly aquatic predators.
What this means is that basically, although the nostrils are still close to the eyes, they're still on the sides of the skull rather than at the top, as you would look at.
As you can see.
Unlike crocs and stuff, they're like not just almost dorsally placed. Yeah, most Spinosaurids, I think almost all of them have more lateral facing nostrils.
Yeah.
So another interesting thing, so where Spinosaurs are present, large numbers of specimens have been found, despite being otherwise rare, suggesting they are exploiting resources in a way other theropods cannot.
Can I talk about that actually?
Yeah, go ahead.
So this, I assume you're on the part about the teeth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So this is interesting because I've read both papers on the matter. So the first paper is where is it? So yes, Beaver et al. 2020 demonstrate that they are the teeth of this animal are amongst the most commonly recovered remains in a pair of localities in the Chemchem group, rivaled only by Onchopristis and at one site ornithochirids. Non-Spinosaurid theropod teeth are only 1 to 5% as common. But then the Hone and Holtz then refer to Heckerberg and Rahut from also 2020 that demonstrate that the rate of replacement of Spinosaurid teeth exceeds that of most other large theropods, excluding I think Majungasaurus, which or just barely beats out Majungasaurus, which has extremely high replacement rate. And they note that the combination of high replacement rate and greater tooth count overall may result in Spinosaurus being overrepresented with respect to their actual fractions in individual environments in the paleo environment. But then they notice that they state that if Spinosaurids were indeed specialists on obtaining and dispatching prey in the river itself, while their sympatric theropod relatives with slower tooth replacement rates are feeding most of the land, the net result would be a far greater occurrence of Spinosaurid teeth in the water than those of their terrestrial feeding kin. Which
kind of cut out again.
Well, I'm sounding perfectly for me, this is bloody annoying. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. Basically, my main point is, Hone and Holtz argue that if Spinosaurids were hunting in the river, regardless of whether they were swimming or standing at the time, they would have much higher rates of teeth. But actually, that's exactly what we see. So I'm very unclear as to what their point on the teeth and abundance thereof is. It seems rather inconsistent.
They kind of jump around with that point.
Yeah, there's a few points that don't seem to really go anywhere.
Like there's all these teeth that's suggesting they're exploiting resources other theropods aren't, but at the same time they're saying, well, that happens a lot in aquatic animals that their teeth will preserve better and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a bit flip flopping on that.
Yeah.
And I mean both points definitely point to at least semi-aquatic animal, but the definition of semi-aquatic is so broad that it's just
broad.
Like, I mean, technically, most mammals could be like, oh yeah, that's semi-aquatic. It swims.
Yeah,
we swim in pools. We're semi-aquatic.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't like using the word semi-aquatic because it's just kind of dumb.
Yeah, it's kind of useless.
But it can be considered that. It just depends on your definition, I guess.
Yeah.
But just there's a huge range of behavior for it. But the main point of the wader shoreline generalist is that they probably acted like large herons or storks, taking fish and other aquatic prey from the edges of the water or in shallow water, and like herons do, they will forage for terrestrial prey and scavenge on occasion.
Yeah. Anyways, do you want to discuss the pursuit predator hypothesis?
You can take it.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, you can
now,
take it.
Now, as I mentioned, there's two extremes. So I want to talk a bit about the other model that they mentioned, which is the pursuit predator model, which advocates that Spinosaurus was, open quotes, an active and highly specialized aquatic predator that pursued and caught its prey in the water column. Ibrahim et al. 2028, page 3. Now, there's no universal definition of what this is, of what a pursuit predator means. But yeah, it's basically when you're swimming after prey and engaging in pursuit. So they do draw a distinction between pursuit predator and ambush predator. which is important to note. So they do address a couple of issues with the pursuit predator model brought up by Ibrahim et al. 2028. The one that's interesting is just how much drag this animal would be facing. It would have. They calculate that it would have to be about 6.5 meters below, at least 6.1 meters below. Thank you. At least 6.1 meters below the water surface to avoid drag from the waves at the top, and that still includes sort of the sail itself within that window causing an issue. So the sail itself should also go a bit further. It's just it would have to be swimming really deep to avoid any drag, which makes it perhaps a bit unlikely that it was really doing any pursuit. They refer to Ibrahim et al.'s model. They built a practical model of the tail, which is not as good at swimming as crocodiles. So it's still good at swim. It might still be good at swimming based on Ibrahim et al.'s initial model, but it would still well below the performance of extant and apparently extinct pursuit predators, according to Hone and Holtz. Let me just get maybe some more details on the model.
You want to talk about the flexibility points in the tail?
Yeah, I mean, shall I take that?
If you want, yeah, you can go ahead with that.
Yeah, okay, so the issue of the tail is basically the interesting thing about the tail. We had a lot of controversy, obviously, we've already discussed when the panel tail was published last year, because obviously Whitson was like, there's no way this is that flexible, and then Whitson's like, okay, maybe it is actually that flexible, and there are adaptations for flexibility in the tail, such as shortened pre- and post-dig apophyses, which would be like little struts on the side of the bone, which would get in the way of a very flexible tail, but these are reduced in Spinosaurus compared to other theropods, so it was more flexible than other theropods. But anatomically speaking, just being more flexible does not mean you're good at being aquatic. And there's a couple of notable differences, one of which I disagree with. But anyways, here it is, yes, the simple robot. So to analyze the thrust and efficiency, they found it was better than theropod dinosaurs, but still lower than that of their crocodile and newt model. And now an increase of tail flexibility, as I say, has been seen for some swimmers that rely on undulation of the body and tail. However, generally we see that the tail, when this happens, rather than becoming completely flexible, is actually divided into discrete portions that are rigid, but as a whole is flexible. Think akin to the tail fluke of mosasaurs, where the tail overall is flexible, but you still have that rigid part at the end. Stiffening of the distal tail, which is the latter part of the tail, is also present in monitor lizards, where they use soft tissue to stiffen the tip of their tail. Interestingly, we see the opposite in Spinosaurus, where the distal part of the tail, the part away from the hips, furthest away from the hips, is the most flexible. And in fact, in crocodiles, the flexibility of this part actually causes a lot of drag, rather than increasing speed in crocodilians. So generally, it's not really a good adaptation for swimming. It's not as well adapted as it initially seems. And yeah, I do think there's a few points where they're a little uncertain.
Ooh.
They mentioned a bit about how robust torso. At some points, they say robust torso is evidence for pursuit predators, and another point they say it's. But then Spinosaurus has it, and apparently it's not. Yeah, they say a relatively rigid trunk may help increase speed. A flexible body is useful for making sharp turns. So it's but at the same time, this does also reflect. I think there's a lot of uncertainty with what we're dealing with. This is a very extreme.
Audio is getting kind of funky again.
Sorry.
Yep, very funky audio. Audio is was a little bit funky at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, well, we recorded my rambling.
This is not going well.
We can cut this out. We can cut this out. Anyways, that's it for me on trunk stiffness and tail. So I'll cease here.
Yeah.
Armin.
Yeah.
Oh, and one final.
In terms of the aquatic.
Sorry, might I just add one final point, please?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, just one final point is also we do see a lot of decreased musculature around the tail, whereas generally in aquatic animals we see an increase of musculature, especially in the cordofemoralis, which is not present. There's actually a very, very under-muscled tail. So it's all a bit weird. Anyways, go ahead.
All I was gonna say is bring up the heron comparison again, in
Yeah.
terms of how the nostrils are located.
Yeah.
Because if you look at Spinosaurus, let's start here again. Not really representative of Spinosaurus in terms of the skull shape, really, but point is that in Spinosaurus and well, mostly Spinosaurus, the nostrils are up here, the eye here, and basically it would be quite well adapted at that's kind of shit. Basically, staying above the water while having the tip of the snout submerged, similar to herons and storks.
Yeah, most shoreline generalists have a very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, which have the nose fairly up to the eye, and the tip of the snout free to do whatever they want, like grab fish. These are actually
Yes.
preserved fish from the camp.
Yes,
These
of
are
course.
real fish. Wow.
Yes, yes. Ah,
That's a coelacanth.
coelacanth. Yes, I
That's
Oh yeah.
the coelacanth. Yeah.
gotta watch out for this gun-wielding coelacanth.
Anyways, yeah. And as you could already tell by some of the drawings I made earlier, it's not really all that well suited for staying submerged under the water. Because you have got a lot of the head poking out, basically.
Yeah.
Unlike
Yeah.
in crocodiles and hippos, which are generally very obvious raised noses.
And as Akira
That
stated
looks
earlier,
awful.
it's good. It's fine. It's
Do you want
fine.
me to try? Do you want me to try?
It's good laughter. It's not very
Yeah.
reassuring, but
But as Akira said earlier, it wouldn't be like it has to submerge itself like over 6 meters to get okay swimming if it wants to be a
yeah,
persistent
because otherwise
predator.
the waves would drag too much. It would suffer
Yeah.
from too much wave drag, especially with that high sail it has. That's
Yeah.
just getting in the way.
Mm-hmm. So it would probably not be very comfortable swimming in deeper water, but it probably still could swim okay.
Yeah.
Like even in shallow water.
Yeah, in shallower water.
Yeah.
And if it's something that I actually find interesting is about the shoreline generalist is most shoreline generalists, like if you look at herons, they're animals that fly around and will like go to many different spots, like in a zone where there's
Yeah.
lots
Oh,
of water and riparian areas. So it seems likely that maybe Spinosaurus has its tail, and I mean maybe it didn't even use its tail that much for swimming, but it probably swam to get to other areas to be able to do the general stuff it's doing, like
Yeah.
hunting fish, finding more areas to hunt fish, scavenging. It's obviously probably moving around a lot where it's living, and that just I think that's backed up by the fact that most other shoreline generalists do that too.
Yeah. So it would.
Okay, that actually beats what I was gonna suggest.
Yeah. I mean, the paper does talk about that. What were you gonna suggest? Oh.
Oh, true. The sail's actually winged, guys. Oh, how could I forget?
Beauty.
This will be Spinosaurus in 2022.
Mark my words.
Right. Well, there's a thumbnail.
Perfect.
Now I gotta add more to it.
But yeah. I think that covers most of the points I wanted to cover. Oh, I do have one more point, which is they mentioned at some point the increased sensitivity of the snout of Spinosaurus in reference to the fact that, say, several, like 5-10 years ago, that was proposed as an adaptation specifically for hunting aquatic prey. Back then it was proposed in sort of the context of a wader feeder. But even then, this paper goes to a length to point out that's not really evidence either way. It's not evident. There's no evidence. It can't be construed as evidence against it, but you can't really use the increased sensitivity of the snout as evidence for hunting fish anymore, because now we have evidence of it in Neovenator from 2017, and even in what was it, Spinosaurus. So
Yep.
actually, this increased sensitivity might just be a general theropod thing, so it should not really be used in future as evidence for Spinosaurus hunting fish, even though all of the other anatomical evidence for it hunting fish definitely holds up.
Yeah.
That's it, and I think I'm done on point. They also make some things about pedal unguals aren't necessarily that.
Yeah, they
flaccid.
aren't really all that flatter than in other theropods.
Yeah, I mean, look at Therizinosaurus.
Megasaurus has pretty flat angles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, interestingly enough, they then point out how Ibrahim et al. Once brought up the length of the toes. Potentially they were webbed, might have helped swim with the legs. This was in 2014. They've not mentioned swimming with legs since the paddle tail. But they then point out that actually the widening and splaying of toes might actually be an adaptation for weight support and weight bearing. In addition to, of course, the fact that we do actually see webbing in wading animals because they have to support on the soft sand and mud.
Oh yeah.
Another interesting point is that actually this kind of lines up with what we see in Therizinosaurs, because Therizinosaurs have a hallux that touches the ground, and so does Spinosaurus. And in Therizinosaurs, that's definitely weight bearing. Both animals being quite heavy set and with short legs. Because that's an interesting thing. Like, there's all the answers they propose, you still can't really explain those short legs Spinosaurus has. Like, that's a tricky one to explain. Which arguably makes a bit of sense when you're going with aquatic pursuit predator, because it doesn't need the legs anymore that much, but still. Interesting stuff. And that's it from me. Anyone else?
I don't really have much else to say except for the part. These are very, again, as stated previously, these are very extreme sides to Spinosaurus' ecology and biology.
Yeah.
And it's important to always remember that it's probably not 100% this or that. It just the way that they make it like this, it's easier to test because there's a huge gray zone in the middle. So
definitely,
it's just easier to you. Yeah, I'm not bashing the paper or anything. I'm just saying like it's definitely not likely that it's like extreme shoreline generalist or extreme.
It's probably as black and white as it's portrayed.
Yeah, it's not nearly as black and white as you're drawing, Armin. You've only
Yeah.
drawn in black and white. There's been no pink. I'm disappointed.
Another time. Like once we get to another certain mammal.
Yes, when we get to the mammal.
Yes, then I'll use pink for you, if you insist.
Don't worry, I've taken care of the pink.
Cal's got it. There we go. Nice.
Okay, yeah, that's also good.
Does anyone want to bring up anything else in particular? I have something else I'd like to bring up.
Not really.
Okay. Can you please delete this? What do you guys think?
Right. Oh yeah, that.
Of the skeletal. This is by Getaway Trike, modified obviously. What are your guys' thoughts? I don't think they ever really explained why they went with this skeletal. They do mention. Oh right, Armin, do you want to mention the thing that they mentioned early on in the paper about their agreement or lack thereof?
Oh yeah. Basically, paper mentions just very casually offhand the whole issue with Ibrahim lumping everything to Spinosaurus aegypticus. No, Citromasasaurus, Australia, everything in North Africa is Spinosaurus aegypticus, according to Ibrahim. And they basically say, yeah, we don't really agree with that. We're gonna use it that way anyways, but we don't agree with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways,
they're like, we don't agree with it, but we're just gonna do it.
And so they still went away with.
I kind of see why, to be honest.
Yeah. That's a weird skeletal choice.
Yeah.
It's unorthodox. They didn't even go with Hartman.
Yeah. I definitely say the skeletal they chose is one of the more interesting ones.
See, so because like looking at let me get up the original skeletal to compare from Getaway Trike. Spinosaurus, Getaway Trike. I'll find the skeletal that sort of highlights. There we go. that highlights what part of the bones are preserved. Actually, let me just. There we go. Yes, I've cooked that poorly, but yeah. So you can see where they kind of got the inspiration from that weird crushed in middle sail.
Yeah.
And also those neck vertebrae get massive.
Oh wow! I just look at that. Creates like a whole like that one that's preserved. It's actually huge. That narrow arch is crazy.
Yeah, but I'm gonna share now a skeletal of Ichthyovenator from PaleoGeek. The reason for that being, I want to highlight sort of what the inspiration might have been for that weird crushed sort of. As you can see, where's the brush? That middle vert seems very similar to the crushing that might be occurring in Ichthyovenator, assuming limited, of course, taphonomic. Oh god, what's the word? Deformation.
Disturbance or deformation?
Little taphonomic deformation. So I'm gonna be honest, I kind of like the design that Getaway Trike used. The approach. But yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not putting any money on it.
I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to it or anything, but it's just one of the more interesting ones I've seen.
Yeah.
But it actually
Of course, we all know. No, we must preserve the M sale.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're listening, yeah, M sale baby.
See, clearly,
if you know who you are.
You know who you are.
Yeah, clearly there's just
this is what you get.
Too little soft tissue. Like actually, soft tissue would have made it look like this. Obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Hang on, I can fix it for you. Where did I put my pen? Yeah, it is.
They actually forgot.
Actually, can I? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the reason I have started like that is because thank you. Because the whole thing was kind of like it's a very basic like.
Yeah.
Of course. And
look at this.
And then of course there is the alternative hypothesis.
The missing bones create a very
perfect.
Yeah, okay, fuck it. I combined the U and the G into one.
Oh my god. The vertebrae were likely much longer than is actually thought. In my expert reconstruction.
And then wait. Let me just. Where's the eraser tool?
Yeah. In this reconstruction, we proposed that we rename Spinosaurus into McDonald's.
It's actually Spinosaurus.
Yes.
There we go.
I hope people enjoyed I don't know how many minutes of mangled science to get to this point.
This is pure perfect science. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes. Sorry in advance, Getaway Trike, for this
never
blatant destruction of your skeletal, but
we apologize for that. That is true. This is not serious. Getaway Trike makes some really awesome skeletals. We mean no disrespect from the skeletal.
You just completely beat booped there, Obama. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyways, with
Yep.
Discord slowly dying on
Yep.
us, shall we wrap up the episode here?
Yeah.
So any closing thought? Personally, I think it's actually quite strong evidence. I don't know how convinced you guys might or might not be. I think it's actually
No, I think it's quite strong. I don't.
I think it's pretty darn good.
yeah. As someone
Yeah,
who
they
was a
have so far.
skeptic going
Makes
into the
sense.
paper as well, very skeptical of it not being that aquatic. I think they've convinced me for now at least. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hang on.
Oh yes.
Just
Perfect.
gotta.
All right.
Oh, we didn't mention the figure.
What figure?
The find the dots.
Oh
Yeah.
god.
Find the red dot.
Jeez.
Here I have it right. I have it right here. Let me post it. Make a new layer for that.
Oh god. The yellow is hurt. The yellow. The yellow is hurting my eyes. Perfect. Do you want to read out the
Now-
caption for the figure? Or explain it.
Yeah, I can read it out.
Yeah,
All
go ahead.
So the principal component is a principal component analysis of various measurements of the skull rescaled to skull length. Principal component 1 plot against principal component 2 plotted using some scale. So the red point is Spinosaurus. Can you find the red point? Yellow are other spinosaurids, green are terrestrial taxa, pale blue are semi-aquatic, and dark blue fully aquatic animals. So they're all coordinated with lines of the convex holes for groups of taxa they represent. The red is Suchomimus, representing Spinosauridae, which is red X's. The light green is Allosaurus, representing non-Spinosaurid theropoda, open light green circles. The orange, Paleorhinus, representing Phytosaurs, light brown pluses. The blue, Paleoneustes. Is that how you pronounce it?
Pelonistes.
Paleoneustes.
Pelonistes, yeah.
The plesiosaur.
Yeah.
Solid dark blue circles. And the dark green's Varanus. Dark brown crocodilus. Which and then they also plot Plotosaurus, Lariasaurus.
They plot Plotosaurus.
They plot Plotosaurus. But yeah, if you guys can find the red dot,
Yeah, tell us in the comments.
please help. Tell us in the
And-
comments.
And check
Yeah.
out the paper as well, because there are some stuff we
I
actually
couldn't
didn't
find it.
touch
I've been
upon.
looking at it.
So check out the paper as well. I'll be linking that.
Yeah,
A-
definitely
and-
read it. It's a very good one.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And yeah, that's all from me. So I guess this is what I say. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Yep.
Bye bye.
See you in the next one.
Bye bye. Don't forget to like and subscribe.